Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is your host Chonky Napa, and today we will be taking a look at 200 plus days journey. So, get ready and let's start. I started by creating a blank project with lots of motivation to make a cozy and peaceful world. After setting up the basic stuff, I was ready to dive a little deeper with player movement. After setting up the movement, it was time to create the very first piece of land and some tree to create oxygen for our player to breathe. While I was setting up the world, the artist, let's call him Red Napa, was working on the very first house for the player. It was finally time to work on the UI. The first and the most basic thing in any RPG, it's an inventory. So we started working on the UI of an inventory. I really didn't want it to make a very complicated inventory system. So for now it was just a visual inventory, which only displays the count of the things you have. The plan was to have different sections in the inventory to show you the different things, such as a section for foraging, a section for crops, and so on. On the other hand, Red Napa was working on the other UI bits for the player to access building and crop placing. And finally, after many days, we are able to place crops in game. You can also cut trees. And mine, we don't have any ore yet, but we will add it pretty soon. So I started working more on the mining mechanics, such as drops and other things like how many times you need to hit with a pickaxe to break the stone. While I was working on this, Red Napa suddenly appeared with whole new player movement animation, which was way more fluid than before, and it finally felt like the player was alive. And while everything was going pretty well, there was still something that was missing. It was the whole town. So, we spent days working on map, and finally the layout was decided. It was 2 tiny islands with some houses. Now comes even bigger challenge. It was time to draw at least 10 houses. At first, I thought it would be really fun to draw so many houses, but it soon turned to hell. It was such a tiring job to keep coming up with ideas for different houses to make them look unique. At that point, we started feeling burnt. So, after weeks of working on houses and rest of the town, I started working on shopping mechanics. And the very first thing, or should I say the very first shopkeeper that we made, is a guy with whom you can buy seeds and much more. So after a few more days, the shop mechanic was finally done. And now that we finally have access to the seeds, it's time to grow crops. So I quickly made some timers and set it to increase the stages of crops in every few days. And of course, you have to water it too. But what after growing the crops, you need a point to sell it. So I thought maybe we can do something like a box where the player could drop the items, which doesn't sound like a fun idea to sell something, so I used this as an excuse and came up with an NPC and a shop. Again, after a few more weeks, the shop was done. And now finally, the player was able to sell his crops. Now that I've been working on mechanics for quite a while, so I decided I should do some art. So I and Red Napa decided that we should do some more environmental things. So he came up with an idea to draw a big waterfall while I was working on a pond where player could do some fishing. So we spent some days working on the animations. And because we were working on pond and waterfall, we thought it's time to add fishing. So after completing the pond and putting it in the map, it was time to make a fisherman's house and some fishing mechanics. First, we thought we should have a fishing rod, but then I thought why not add something little different? So we came up with an idea to make a trap which can be placed by a player and let it sit there for a while. And once the fish is inside, it will get caught. So while we're working on all this, I was also working on day-night cycles and some lighting. I'm still unsure about the length of a day, but for now I have set it to 10 minutes. And we also started working on mine. We worked on mine, and we were also making more NPCs. And I also have to work on NPC movement, which I thought instead of making them walk on a set path, I would go with the random movement. I also had to work on the dialogue and heart system. On the other hand, Red Nappa came up with whole new UI design, which was a lot of work for me and of course, and for him as well. When he came up with the new design, we had to work again on the UI. So I thought, why not change the inventory system once again and make it a little more interactive. I also made a chest where player could store their item. It's been almost 250 days since we have been working on our peaceful farming RPG Avalon, which is quite a lot of fun, actually. We have always wanted to make a game, and finally it seems like we can complete our dream. This is Chonky Nappa, your host with Red Nappa. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will see you in the next video.